And the Hawks added another one before full time. Dunstall finishing with 12. They kicked 14 goals to 6 in the second half and ran out winners 21-15, 141 to 18-13, 121 by 20 points. Dunstall 12, Hudson kicked 3, and for Geelong, Bairstow, the chief goal kicker there with 4 goals. A couple of reports, Rogers and Burke, both from Geelong from the first half. We take a break after this. Officers and Scotty, what about Malcolm Blight? What was he thinking at half time?
Well, he said it was like having a lollipop in your mouth at the shop and then turning around on the way home the corner and having it stolen from you, Bruce. He said that's how bad it was, that's how bad it felt. And he said it was a very, very disappointing moment for the club. They got a big function down there tonight, but they'll be training at Cardinia Park at 9 o'clock tomorrow to try and forget about it. OK, so Hawthorn maintained their dominance over Geelong. Jason Dunstall, he looked a bit proppy towards the end when he kicked his 12th goal. Well, he said for the last 15 minutes he had trouble running. He's got a badly jarred right ankle, not the same one that he suffered last year. He's hopeful of playing next week, but he's got that little bit of doubt about it. So let's hope he can be right for the big match. He's got a good record against Geelong, hasn't he? A terrific record. That's the second time he's kicked 12, both against Geelong, both in the opening round and both at Waverley. So he likes that ground and he likes playing against the Cats. Case of deja vu out there today. Now, what about Alan Joyce? What did he have to say? He was very pleased with the performance all round, and particularly Jason Taylor, the kid he picked up from the Fitzroy side in the draft. He said he can play either end of the ground and he's fitted in wonderfully. Big rap from Alan Joyce after your first game. It sure is. What's the news from Collingwood today? They played Richmond in a trial match. Good news, 23-point win by the Magpies, but bad news because Tony Shaw went up off in the first 5 minutes with a hamstring injury. That means an ankle and a back and a hamstring. No chance of playing in the first round, I'd say. OK, and what's the situation with Sydney and Fitzroy? What happened there? Well, Sydney won 17-18 to 10-16. Minton Connell, who they got for Greg Williams, kicked 10 nice goals today for the Swans. But Stuart Wigney, the boy they picked up from Footscray's, got a suspected fractured bone in the ankle. Could miss 4 or 5 weeks, so it's good and bad news up there for the Swans. North Melbourne, how do they go against Williamstown? Their pre-season build-up was finalised today. They won 22-13 to 6-10, and Jose Romero looked good. OK, now I know Paul Hudson wore number 17 for Hawthorn today in the big match, but there was also a number 17 out there in the Little League. It was a great day for the Tuck and the Ablett families. Mum and Dad, Faye and Michael unfurled the flag. Uncle Gary, he got a few kicks for Geelong. And young Shane Tuck played his first game for the Hawthorn Little League, unannounced, played in the long sleeves and a 17 on his back, Brucey, and he played well. Good on you, Scotty. Keep punching. Mate. I'll see you tomorrow morning. Good, mate. Scotty Palmer, who's bringing us right up to date. So the AFL today finishes and the conclusion with Hawthorn winning today by 20 points. But don't go away because after this break we're going to Carrara. Live action, Brisbane versus Carlton.
This has been another 7 Sport production. The network of the 1990s.
Well, imagine the excitement and the tension in the room right now. The first of the football hours for 1992. Our special guest today, Gary Ayres. Already Hawthorn have won the Foster's Cup, and yesterday they were magnificent at Waverley when they won by 20 points over Geelong in a screaming match to start the season. The Cats led by nearly 5 at half-time. Dunstall kicked 6 in the third term and 12 in all, and Hawthorn by 20 points. Carlton also staged a recovery. They looked down and out at half-time, got back into it in the third quarter, and then Stephen Kernahan helped them steamroll Brisbane to win by 24 points. The flag was unfurled. It was an emotional day yesterday at Waverley. The Cats came out firing against the Hawks. A couple of what's your decisions here. When the first goal of the match, a few players stopped looking for free kicks. Forsbrand able to get it over to bouncing Billy. Play on, they say. The 2 grand final umpires from last year were in charge, and Brownless didn't kick it all that sweetly, but it was effective because it went through for 6 points and Geelong were away. So they started well enough against Hawthorn. They've had some problems against the Hawks for a long time now. You remember in 1989 when they led by plenty at Princes Park and were run down, and then in that memorable grand final. And 2 years ago, Jason Dunstall kicked 12 goals against Geelong in the opening match of the season at Waverley, and he did the same yesterday. He was in brilliant form. Magnificent player. Bairstow kicked 4 for the Cats, their captain. Led from the front, and Geelong led in a high-scoring and high-standard first term, 5-3 to 4-3. But Dunstall, as I said earlier, was superb, whether taking marks or snapping goals. And if he can maintain his fitness and form, then Lockett versus Dunstall is going to be something. That was Hanley and Madigan. Madigan copping one there. His couch, he had a purple patch in the second term when he kicked 3 goals in 10 minutes, and Geelong got this run on and got right away from Hawthorn and led by 28 points at half-time. It looked to be a match-winning lead. Bookmakers were betting 4-1 on at the races, Geelong at half-time. but Hawthorn came back. Ablett just going the wrong way here, but Dunstall misses this one. Didn't miss too many, but that was one that he did miss. Paul Hudson has been bestowed the honour of wearing a very famous jumper, number 17, at Hawthorn, and it looks to be in very good hands. Well, Darren Jarman, he's an enigma. He's one of the most exciting players. He's so casual. His last quarter, we really opened it up yesterday, but you'd back him every time from here, 45 metres on the run. He not only kicks goals like that, if he puts them down the throat of Jason Dunstall like he did a little later. Here he goes again. Watch this. Bang. The vision's pretty good, and then the kick. And Dunstall a bit proppy after this one. And going to ask Scotty Palmer about his situation, but he finished off with just the dozen. Not a bad way to start the year, is it? 12 sausage rolls out at Waverley. OK, last night, physical game. Some interesting incidents from this one. Owen's first goal for the Bears. They started well, Brisbane. They looked like they were home at half-time. They led 7-2. Here's Caverton down and out here. He went off the ground. It looked awful for him. But you'll see in a minute he does come back on because he's involved here with Gastev.
Boot the ball quickly. The umpires will have to take charge here. There's a Bears player down behind play.
Now here's Martin Leslie sandwiched. McCormack and Silvani. McCormack was involved in an incident a bit later on with Campbell where he was reported. We can't show you that unfortunately, but here's DeLulio on the run goaling, the new player. I say unfortunately because looked to be a pretty good hip and shoulder by McCormack.
Oh, a kick to the head. Oh,
now,
boy, who was that?
That was our Siri and Alexander, and Carlton really opened up in the second half. They were back to something like the old Blues, and Bradley on the up to Gleeson, and home it goes. And they were pretty impressive in the end, but they were very poor early, and they've got to face Hawthorn next week, and that is a test. 3 reports, Rogers and Burke, both from Geelong. I think that might have been in the first quarter against Anderson, and in the second quarter against Pritchard, and McCormack last night against Campbell. So 3 reports, so the tribunal will be pretty busy. Now the final 6, it has changed this year. The big contentious issue was the fact that 3rd played 4th last year in the opening week. This time it's 3 plays 6. The second week gets a little complicated. If 3 wins match B, they go through to the second semi-final. But if number 6 team wins match B, then the winner of number C, 4 plays 5, goes through to that second semi-final. And then we go straight on in the last weeks. It's second semi-final, first semi-final, as you'd expect, in the prelim and the grand final. A lot of people agree with it. Geelong and St Kilda last year bringing it to the fore, with the Saints finishing 4th and going out straight away. But, well, not many teams win from down there anyway, so if you can finish 1st or 2nd, you've got a great advantage. Headlines, what's been making news? Mick Malthouse will coach the State of Origin team against the Victorians yet again. There were some rumours saying that he wasn't all that happy about that, but he will. In Adelaide, well, they're saying the Bulldogs are looking for revenge, but Andrew Jarman says the Crows by 5 or 6 goals. And the big story from Melbourne was that Michael Tuck admits that he didn't want to quit, but who would after all that success? But you've got to give it away sometimes, Scotty, and they're in pretty good hands with Gary Ayres.
They looked great yesterday, Bruce. Really great.
They sure did. Now, what's the situation today? There's a big game at Waverley. Terry Danaher, is he going to play for Essendon?
He was supposed to have a midday test today, but the bookmakers last night at the Trots heard that he wasn't going to play today, and they're pretty sound with their judgment. The price of St Kilda came into 4-7. And it just blew out a whisker to 5-4 on the Dons. So I believe that probably Danaher will sit this one out. OK, now Tony Shaw's in all sorts of trouble. He probably, sure is.
Well, he's not going to play next week. Now, they've got 3 vices at Collingwood, haven't they? Captains, I mean.
They've got 3 vice-captains, yes. They've got Dacos, Brown and Kelly. And they all meet tomorrow night in an inner sanctum dinner where the 40 closely guarded people of Collingwood get together and they work out how they're going to get to the premiership this year in centenary year. They're going to have a big dinner. It's going to be minestrone soup, chicken shazlik, and also meringue tart.
Oh, I wouldn't mind one of those.
But Peter Dacos will be asked to lead the side on Saturday because Tony Shaw is going to miss 2 weeks with a hamstring.
OK, not a bad menu there, Scotty.
No, they do well things at Collingwood.
Now, Dacos is going to play, but is Jason Dunstall going to play against Carlton?
Well, he's jarred his ankle 2nd week in a row. I spoke to the club today and they expect him to come good. He's that sort of boy, he won't miss games for a jarred ankle, so he'll have treatment all week and will play.
Gee, I'm sure you'll be...
But Dermot Brereton will miss again next week. We spoke to Dermot after yesterday's game. He hopes to play about 16 to 18 games this year. The hip is causing some problems, but he'll miss next week and be back the week after.
Well, Gerard Healy wrote in the paper last week that his days were numbered. Do you imagine Brereton chafing at the bit on the sidelines?
Well, he's a bit upset about all that negative publicity, but it's probably true that the fact that he's going to be a week-to-week proposition.
The second side in Western Australia, what's happening there?
The whispers are strong over there in Perth that they want a second side, that's a Fremantle side, up and running for next year. Now, the league are aware of this fact, but they prefer to wait a little bit and just wait till all those West Australian Football League sides are financially sound before they put another one in. But blokes like Mel Brown over there are very, very anxious to get a side into the AFL competition now.
And Scotty, was that it or was there one more? I've got something else written down here, I can't read it.
Well, of course, the West Coast Eagles, they've given our own Timmy Watson an uplift in the Guernseys. We used to play for 32 at Essendon. He's got 33 now for the Eagles.
Well, we'll ask.
He's down the list, though.
You think he'll play?
I don't think so.
No. I promise.
He looks better with his haircut, too.
Oh, he does, too. We're about to see him. Oh, there he is. He's a good-looking fella. I promise not to call you the Professor of Propaganda for the rest of the year.
I don't mind, Bruce.
Good on you, Scott. Keep punching.
See you, mate.
Good on you, mate. We take a break. The panel after this. Unfortunately. Bobby, by the way, congratulations. One of your fans, and welcome back, by the way, too. One of your fans wrote into me during the week and was very irate that I didn't mention that last year you won the Media Personality of the Year award. What was this for, out of Geelong or something, was it?
No, it was at the North Melbourne Grand Final breakfast, Bruce.
Is it a national-wide...
Well, it was on your telecast, Bruce.
Well, congratulations, by the way, Bob. Has it made any difference to you?
I don't think so, Bruce. I'm just going to say a few things. Give a couple of warnings to the AFL. Best two teams in the competition, only 37,000 at the football.
34, Bob.
34.
34,000.
Even better. And to Ronald, of course. Ronald.
Yes.
Your Rules Committee. You would be better far to, rather than... You'd be better far away, be better far away from them. But if they would just institute the rules that they've got, first of all, walking over the line with the ball, concussion, if you get knocked out, you get concussed, you don't come back on, uncontrolled bleeding. Look, there's about 5 in a row that you could go. Why don't you just get the umpires to give the right decisions on the day?
By the way, Bob, you've wintered well. Welcome, Ron. How are you?
Thanks very much, Bob.
Yeah.
Good start to the season. All I've got to say to that rubbish, Bob, is that the Rules Review Committee has not met this year at all, so
No,
all these
when
things
they
have got
do
nothing to
meet,
do with us at this stage.
when they do run, get the umpires to actually adjudicate on the rules that they've got or make them easier for the people to see. Last night there were 3 in a row. Kicking in danger. How was that last night before little Arceri? Did they ever do anything about it? Do you make the rules
actually,
black and white?
He got one. It's a bit similar to Billy Barrett getting kicked in the jaw 15 years ago, which brought out a hullabaloo about kicking in danger. It is another hairy area of Australian football. But I'd like to say good morning to you guys. Now, all we want this year is some nice, reasoned approach on the rules. None of this hang the committee sort of business. And also, I think it was a bit of a worry too that only 34,000 turned up yesterday at AFL Park. Only one match in Melbourne. Australia out of the cricket, really, out of the semi-finals. So why wasn't there more there?
OK, I expect there'll be more today with Essendon and St Kilda. Gerard, the difference between uncontrolled bleeding and controlled bleeding, can you explain that as a physiotherapist?
Well, we're still trying to work that one out. We did mention that on a number of occasions last night, but just getting back there, great to see Bob dressing fashionably anyway with his fluorescent tie there. Perhaps his thinking will come into it a little bit.
It's not flaring, is it?
No, I just want to make one point. Just want to make one quick point about Brisbane. Before we start getting another team to Western Australia, Brisbane will be, in less than 25 years, the second biggest city in Australia, and that's bigger than Melbourne. So the AFL Commission must look at that now and start preparing that state, thinking AFL football before it's too late. Rugby's got a great foothold in up there, but if we let it go, there's 4 million people gone, and I'm sure Barras would agree with this. Maybe ratings will be gone. 7 may not be interested in football if the second biggest city in Australia
will have a team in 25 years.
And it's the exact reason why we have to continue to have an independent commission away from club interest. If we ever got back to the clubs running the game, Brisbane's explosion into 4.5 million people in 25 years would have no thought at all with any club. They wouldn't be concerned about that at all, and it is something very important for the game to cover, as Jared has just said, in the future. But clubs don't think that way, nor they should. So that's why we've got to have a commission.
If Mel Brown wants to get into the AFL, which it appears he does, send him up to Brisbane and get him into promoting it with the kids.
OK, Tim, we've run out of time. How are you, by the way? Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Bruce.
You'll find this every week, Tim. Tim Watson, you're not playing for West Coast, you've already said that, haven't you? But they've given you number 33.
Yes, I was invited to go over there last weekend and be part of the Guernsey presentation, but I decided that perhaps I'd stay back in Melbourne last weekend, and I have no intention of playing football again.
That's bad news for your fans, but good news for us because you're going to be with Channel 7. Bernie Quinlan, do you like the Hawks yesterday?
Oh, well, Peter McKenna's been wrapping them up for years, and they are just getting better and better, Bruce. And the way they turned that game around yesterday, 28 points down at half-time, they came out with an 8-goal burst in that third quarter and just ran all over Geelong. And I think, well, it's a matter of who can beat them for the flag.
Well, Dunstall versus Lockett, Peter, as a former champion goal kicker.
Don't ask me to differentiate between those two fantastic players, but I think they're all playing for second again this year, Bruce. I hate to say it, the Hawks, I reckon they're playing a type of football that is just on a superior level to every other side.
Well, Hawthorn don't give the captaincy away lightly. There have been 6 captains in 30 years, some of the most famous names, including Matthews and Scott and Arthur and Kennedy, etc. and Tuck. And Gary Ayres is the new captain. He's played in 5 premiership teams. He started there way back in 78. I think Tucky was 33 before he got the captaincy. You're only, what, 31, Ayresy? You haven't had to wait so long, have you? It must be a tremendous honour to be the captain of the club that is regarded as the most professional and successful in the last 30 or 40 years in football.
Yes, for me personally, Bruce, it was a terrific honour for the club to give me the captaincy, and I just certainly hope I can do the job for them.
Well, Bernie, the job was done yesterday at Waverley, but not without a scare.
No, certainly.
Who got your votes, mate?
Yes, well, I gave 3 votes in the end to Dunstall. It was only a matter of who got the second and third, because Dunstall's 12 goals performance was really the factor that kept Hawthorn in the game in that first half. And he finished it off, of course, kicked 6 goals in the third quarter. An amazing performance from the full forward. Darren Jarman, who had only 5 possessions in the first half, came out, and I thought he certainly swung the game around with his use of the ball in the second half. And Bairstow, with his 30 possessions and 4 goals for Geelong, was a tremendous performer as well.
So do you think Geelong, they've had a real shot yesterday? I mean, they haven't been able to get over Hawthorn in recent years. Where do they go from here?
Well, I think that they can still improve, Geelong. There's still a couple of areas in their side that they can improve, and one centre-half forward, they played a young bloke Hanley there yesterday. I was a bit surprised when the game was tight in the end that they left Stoneham on that back line, left him at centre-half back. Hanley hadn't been doing a lot at centre-half forward, and yet they left him there all day. I thought Malcolm Blight may have made the change, brought Stoneham down there and won the game, but he decided to leave him there all day. They played also a young bloke at fullback, Tim McGrath, who has only played a handful of senior AFL games, and he was playing on the second, equally to the best full forward in the business. And it was really sending a boy out on a man's errand, because he was really all at sea, and the way the ball came down, he had no hope of really controlling Dunstall.
Bernie, do you understand Burke starting on a bench? Well, if he's so influential, and we're led to believe that's what they think.
Well, obviously, Ronnie's had a very limited preparation coming into the season, and they may have thought that using him off the bench, they may have got some value off him, but he really looked short of match practice, and he had no influence on the game.
Well, why play at all then?
Well, exactly. Well, maybe they thought just coming off the bench for a few short spells may have just swung the game with some big punches out of the middle.
His first short spell as the opening cruncher.
Well, I agree. If he's not fit, he shouldn't be out there at all, probably. But maybe,
didn't do too badly, did he? Barnes was helping Geelong early, hit the game.
Barnes did ruck very well, Bob.
Well, but they thought that obviously that Barnes was going to do better. Then Burke hardly touched the ball for 7 weeks.
We're talking about the principle of having supposedly your best ruckman. I mean, if he's not fit, he shouldn't play. Do you agree with that?
Well, what about
absolutely correct? But there again, it's like champion racehorses first up, Ron. They usually run well in a sprint.
Sorry, Bob. Gary, you won the premiership last week. I think most clubs would celebrate, but it appeared to be very subdued in the Hawthorn rooms last week. Was that in deference to this game coming up? Or
Certainly, Jared. Alan pointed out that last year we got a bit of a hiding over there in Adelaide, so of course he said that everyone had to keep their feet firmly planted on the ground. And after the game, we certainly said that it was nice to win the pre-season competition, but the game at hand was against Geelong this Saturday, so yeah, he was certainly revving everyone up for their performance yesterday.
Gary, you've got an amazing combination down there, you, Chris Langford, Andrew Collins, do you get together as a group much and talk tactics, or is it just through playing together all these years?
I think it's just mainly playing together for a number of years, and we've been doing that now for about 6 or 7. And I think too, during the different training drills, Alan likes to put the backs together, and of course that obviously helps too, to know what you're going to do on a Saturday.
Gary, with regards to players you're playing on over the last couple of years, do you think that a lot of sides are thinking you're perhaps a little bit suspect with a pacey player?
Oh yes, that's always been the way, Timmy. The record never seems to change, does it? But I just try and go out there with the idea of beating my opponent, and obviously too, if you're a back player, you do rely a lot on the players further up the field, and if they can put pressure and not have the players that they're on as poised in delivering the ball, it certainly helps me out, and I'm sure you'd appreciate that too, playing there.
It's the feeling at half-time when you came in 28 points down, Gary, and things were looking bad. A few of the people were starting to write you off around in the commentary area. What was the feeling in the rooms at half-time? Did you still feel that you had a real good chance of winning the game, or how did you approach it after half-time?
Well, we tried to remain positive because we'd lost the first 2 quarters, and obviously it's an old cliche, but you take it 30 minutes at a time, and we certainly knew that we weren't playing as we had done in the previous 3 games, and of course if we can turn that around. But obviously too, with Paul Deere going into the centre, certainly helped a lot, and of course Darren Jarman played fantastically after half-time, so that gives us another avenue if we can throw players around and they can rise to the occasion.
When I ask you about Jarman, I just want to jump in here. Has Alan Joyce paid special attention to him? Because he has all the skills, but he was a bit disappointing at the end last year.
Oh, well, Darren's worked extremely hard on his fitness, and I think the adjustment that they've got to go through when they come across from South Australia for 12 months takes a while, obviously, but Darren, as soon as he gets into the centre, he certainly does play very well, but he's a dangerous half-forward as well, and he's probably been a little bit unlucky to that's taking him perhaps a little bit longer to fit into the way the style of the game is for Hawthorn, but he certainly did the job yesterday when it was asked.
Gary, how's the club going to fit both Greg Deere and Stephen Lawrence into the side?
I'll leave that one up to the match committee, I think.
Now, just one other quick one. We've hounded Tim Watson into having a haircut. Any chance of you seeing the barber?
Well, not as yet, Gerard, no.
Are you on the match committee?
Yes, I am now, Ron.
So you will have something to do with this decision between those 2 players?
Yes, you have a bit of an input. Yes.
Just what would be your solution?
Well, obviously you've got to look at who you're coming up against that particular week, and obviously how the other players are performing, and as we all know, you never really have a full list to pick from, so opportunities certainly come up.
Is there a philosophy that your club does not like to have 2 form ruckmen changing off the bench? Do you believe that's no good, or do you believe it is good?
I think too, with a guy like Stephen Lawrence, he can play just about anywhere, so his first game was at centre half forward and he kicked 5 goals, so that's obviously one the match committee would have to look at when that situation arises.
Politician, no, captain and politician.
Just on Geelong, Bruce, I don't think we've seen the end of them by any shot of the imagination, because I think they could line up with a different side compared to what they had yesterday. I think they're really wasting Ablett, starting him off in the middle. He certainly didn't have much influence on the game. He kicked a magnificent goal at the end. Stoner maybe centre half forward, centre half back. Even Ablett could be playing full forward. Brownless centre half forward. I think their forward line setup could be a lot better than it is at the moment. And also they tried 3 full backs on Jason Dunstall and didn't try last year's fullback Andrew Rogers, who did a pretty good job last year.
Gary, commented on one of your unheralded players, a player to me that's just improved out of sight, Ray Jenke, enormous skills.
Yes, he has. Ray came down in the club, and I think everyone appreciated the fact that he did have a lot of skills, and he was representing Victoria, and I think in '87 was his first game for Victoria, and then he sort of had a few injuries. I think he had glandular fever and a knee operation. He sort of had a few setbacks and couldn't really get back into the team, but to his credit, he stuck it out. He's worked extremely hard. He got the reward he deserved last year, which was playing in a premiership team, and yesterday was his 100th game.
Great kick too, isn't he?
Yes, he is. He's very poised. He's got good balance. I did an article and I said that he's got good vision, so if he can set the ball up from the half-back flank, then that's where you can make a lot of attacking moves from there.
The boy Cooper who came across from Fitzroy, Gary, does he look, an excellent prospect on the training track?
Could be Taylor, I think.
Taylor.
Yes, he's performed well on the track too. He's trained very hard, and we're certainly looking at him to obviously fill any positions that become available down back or forward, and he certainly gave us a bit of bite after half-time yesterday.
And in your short stint on the selection committee up to the present stage, do you have a philosophy, as Ron would say, that you select your team against the opponents, or you select your best team of it?
Well, I think you've got to look at obviously the opposition that you're playing, and it's horses for courses too, so you probably look. Well, that's the way I would look at it anyway.
Okay, that's it.
What would you do, Bob?
He'd pick his
I
best
just
team.
pick the best team and put them out in the field.
That's how Geelong were when he
Well,
came,
that's
so
what
they
you
haven't
said.
changed.
That's right, Ron.
Tell what I'd find interesting as a selector is Dermot Brereton's situation. When does he tell you when he's available to play each Saturday? When do you know if he's going to be fit enough?
Well, that's obviously up to the match committee and also to the medical staff, so they monitor his progress fairly closely. But a guy like Dermot, even if he is a bit sore, you definitely leave it till the absolute last moment to include him in the side because he's such a great player.
So what is it, just pain that stops him from training at full stretch or what?
I'm not sure of the actual medical diagnosis. You might have to speak to Barry Gavin on that one, Ron.
Or Gerard Healy, who wrote that article about him last week. Look, Jason Dunstall was the big star yesterday. He loves playing against Geelong in the opening round, obviously, because he kicked 12 goals 2 years ago. He's kicked 11 goals 4 times and 12 goals twice, and he's also kicked 10 goals. He's one of the greats, there's no question about that. And he's closing in on Hudson, and he's still got a fair way to go to catch Lee Matthews as far as the #1 goal kicker at Hawthorn. Izzy, thanks for coming in. We don't give pies away anymore, mate, but I thought a pair of socks would go down all right today. Take those, because I'm just a bit worried we might be able to get a shot of him down there. Here we go. Just the ankles here. No socks, David. Give them back on your way out, Gary.
I will, Bruce. Thank you very much.
Well done, and good luck for the rest of the year, mate.
Thank you.
Gary Ayres, the captain of Hawthorn. As I said, they don't give that away in a hurry at Hawthorn. There's only been half a dozen in 30 years. We take a break, back with more after this. With a rush, Kernahan with 5.
Yes, well, a terrific game, Bruce. Played in 2 halves. The Bears looked home at half-time, but as we saw last year, they were in front at half-time on 7 occasions, but managed to lose, and once again, history repeated itself. But the big difference in this game, of course, was Stephen Kernahan. Well held by Champion in the first half, but Kernahan showed his true champion qualities, broke loose, and kicked 4 second-half goals for a total of 5. I thought Brett Ratton did well, kept Michael McLean, possibly one of the Bears' very few match winners. He kept him very quiet. I think he only had 13 possessions and he picked up 20 himself. And Kavanagh, not only did he raise the concussion issue, but he did play very well in the ruck. He a little bit short for a ruckman, I guess, but he's got a massive spring. A young player with a lot of talent. I think that he's going to be a great asset to Carlton as the years go by, particularly when Madden begins to hang the boots up.
Where will they play Kevin when Madden comes back?
Well, I think they'll play him maybe on the half-forward flank, interchanging Spalding, Cavidan and Kernahan, of course. The big thing about Carlton is they've got to keep Kernahan at full forward. The ruckman of the opposition sides the last couple of years have been just dropping back on him, keeping out of the play.
Who's in half forward, Jared?
Spalding was playing centre half forward, so they can interchange those two players, and if Cavidan comes in, well, once again. But this was a hard, a tough, a bruising game, and there was more stitch work here than I've seen in a lot of games, with about 6 or 7 players taking stitches, and I think maybe Neil Buzzy may be a little bit busy during the week. Bob?
Well, as the AFL's medical advisor, Jared, is there going to be an independent doctor to decide concussion or not?
Well, it has to be.
Well, there can't be an independent doctor to every game. I mean, that would be unrealistic in farm
we're going to have a fight between the two medicos, and the Carlton man saying Cavidan's quite all right because he came on and you gave him a vote.
Well, Cavidan did perform admirably when he did come back onto the ground, but it's got to be left in the hands of the doctors. It's a bit like controlled and uncontrolled bleeding. I've never seen bleeding controlled, but I guess we'll work on that. But the big difference between these two sides came down to match winners. Carlton found some in the second half in Kernahan, and Bradley slipped Bain's tag. Bain did very well on him up until three-quarter time, but Bradley cut loose and won the ball out of the centre and basically won the game with Kernahan.
Jared, I want to know if you're game enough to say what you said on the plane on the way home about young McCormack and DeLilio, the two boys from
very
the
physical players, aren't they, Peter? And I think they're going to fit right into that Carlton
That's
side.
That's not what you said.
And I must admit, I was very pleased that cyclone had stopped. There wasn't any water on the ground, because we know how you go to pieces when the water comes out.
I thought you might
Gerard,
mention that some stage.
On the blood, perhaps it's controllable and uncontrollable. Like controllable as in you can put a patch on it, a bandage on it, and it doesn't sort of start still weak.
Well, then if
seep out.
Well, then it's not bleeding, is it?
You mean a bit like a boxing match, Ron?
I mean, this whole age thing is farcical. The one issue where a guy, we think, there was an Italian soccer player, was because he clashed heads. There was no blood on a body, And that's the only reason why they're changing this whole rule.
And no proof that even then it was
exactly,
because of that.
no proof. And why are we going around with just basically...
Well, I'm glad you've stopped kissing me anyway.
Jared, you mentioned Cavan doing well in the ruck at 6'4". Jim Steins plays more as a ruck rover. I think Lawrence plays more as a ruck rover type player. Do you think that some sides are still overemphasising the need for a big ruckman?
Well, I think if you can get first use in the centre, Tim, as you know, it's a great asset. And if you can get it by winning the knock as a Justin Madden, well, then you go with that. But if you haven't, well, then you're better off, instead of just losing the ruck and having a tall player that can't get the ball, you're better going for the second bet, which is a guy that can get the ball around the ground.
It's interesting, actually, Tim, you played with Madden and Salmon for a long time. They're pretty big fellas, aren't they, at Essendon?
Yeah, I just think that the game has evolved to a state now where we really are probably looking at playing 6'3", 6'4" guys who have got a bit of spring and are athletic and can move around the whole ground.
I think if the ruckman, the tall guys are going to play, they have to be able to dominate like a Justin Madden or a Simon Madden. Otherwise, I think they're almost dinosaurs.
I just want to ask Peter McKenna, did you ever get 3 votes for kicking 5 goals, Peter, at full forward? You'd have to kick 12 to get 3 votes,
Well,
wouldn't you? Because that'd be ordinary
over,
performance, 5 goals
right,
for you.
Bill, you set your own standards, Bernie. Thank you very much.
Who did you give your votes for, Pete?
What, up the Bears?
Who did you vote for?
Oh, I would have voted for much the same as you. It's a difficult game.
But the good thing, Bernie and Peter, is that 2 full forwards have got the votes.
And good to see Shacky doing a little bit better after he was admonished by Bernie, Quinlan, Ian Robertson.
And he only dropped 5 marks.
He did
last
drop
night.
5 marks.
We're going to a break.
And he hurdled.
We're going to go to a break and we're going to have a look at the goals of the week after this. Like that. Better 2 men to have a look at the goals of the week.
The goal of the week and the goal of the year are brought to you by BP. BP, on the move.
Well, the first goal we look at is one from Tony Hall. He kicked that one from 50 metres out. The little bit we didn't see at the start was he smothered the kick from Kenny Hinkley to get that ball to the ground and get involved in that shot at goal. But it was a great lead up to that.
Now have a look at this play. Out of position by Dunstall, tapped it down with the left hand and then runs round a Geelong player. Tremendous play by a great full forward.
Yeah, bread and butter stuff. Mark Bairstow, he played a great game for Geelong yesterday. Kicked 4 goals, had 30 possessions and led from the front, definitely. This one, a little bit of luck involved there. It bounces in the square and just makes it across the line. But a good snap goal from Mark Bairstow.
Now the next goal is Darren Forsman, the little utility player for the Cats as he runs to the boundary line. The presence of mind is steady before he kicked that goal, so good play by the Redhead.
Yeah, certainly, and another great goal, running goal here from Johnny Platten. That came, the kick out from full back was taken by Madigan's centre half back, the hand pass from Jarman, and away he went, and Platten running towards the boundary line. Didn't have a lot of goal front to shoot at.
Well, the magic of Ablett. He was caught, could still see the goals, the ball in mid-air, and he slammed it through for a great goal.
And this bloke, he was a very impressive player yesterday for Geelong, Paul Brown. He kicked 2 goals 5, but very lively. He gave Gary Ayres plenty of problems with a great snap on the left boot.
Colin Alexander, the former Collingwood rover, discarded by the Magpies. It was a good goal, typical forward pockets goal, and he's very clever, Colin, round the goals.
And this one, again from the game at Carrara last night, John Hutton, the new recruit from the West, and there, what tremendous snap goal from the boundary line.
Well, Bernie, we disagreed on this one. It was a split vote. I liked Jason Dunstall's, to be quite honest. It was tremendous. He was bustled out of position, tapped it down, then went on and got it again. Tremendous. You've gone for Ablett.
Well, you lost the toss, and I thought Gary Ablett's goal, it was a real instinct goal. He really thought about it. He summed up the situation perfectly. He didn't take possession of the ball. He knew he was about to be tackled, and that's the sort of goal that you see in a soccer final or a soccer game, and Gary Ablett's won the goal of the week.
Good on him, Bernie, and he's in line for the goal of the year, but you've got a feeling that in the first week something's going to happen between now and September that just might displace him, but a great goal anyway by Gary Ablett to start it off. Well, goal kickers are in the news at the moment. We've had Dunstall kicking 12 yesterday. There's a lot of thought as to just how many goals Lockett will kick if he plays each of the matches this season. Will he get to 150? Well, Tabaret are betting on who will be the leading goal kicker, who will win the John Coleman medal. And this week, in the first of the Sportsworld shootouts, we got together 4 of the very best: Dacos, Brownless, Dunstall and Lockett. And Stephen Phillips went along to see just who was the sharpshooter amongst them.
Each player will have 5 shots at goal from 4 separate areas. 20 kicks all up, winner take all. A blustery day here at Glenferrie, the old home ground of Hawthorn, and first blood to Collingwood's Peter Dacos. Hawkful forward Jason Dunstall trains here every night of the week, and in round one he quickly found his range. After 3 straight misses, Billy Brownless was spot on from 40. Lockett had kicked 6 straight from this spot in practice, but he missed 4 times in a row before getting on the board. OK, and our scorer, Alan Jakovic, puts up Bill Brownless' second goal, so after the first round, Tony Lockett on 1, Dunstall, Dacos and Brownless 2 apiece. From the set shot straight in front, 40 out, the good money was on Tony Lockett, and with his first 2 kicks, he pulled in the opposition. Jason Dunstall's first kick from straight in front, nothing wrong with it at all. Poor old Peter Dacos has never been one for the easy shot, and he missed 4 times in succession. Next up, Billy Brownless. He was on target with his first 2 kicks, missed 2, and then found the goals with his 5th. But the second round belonged to Tony Lockett, 4 out of 5. 4 goals to Tony Lockett in the second round takes him up to 5. We've got a 3-way tie on the leaders board. Lockett, Dunstall and Brownless 5 apiece. Peter Dacos only 1 from that round. Round 3, Lockett first up on the angle and with a nasty cross-wind. But that didn't seem to deter the St Kilda legend. He had his eye on the $2,000 first prize put up by Sportsbook. A little angle, a little wind, and you could get Dacos at his best, but he still trailed. Jason Dunstall kicked 2 from 5, the home ground advantage telling. With his last kick, however, Billy Brownless drew level with Lockett. Melbourne's Alan Jakovic puts the goals on for Billy Brownless. He scored 8, Tony Lockett 8 after 15 kicks. Dunstall still in contention with 7, but Peter Dacos will find it very difficult. He's on 5. Lockett couldn't find his range with the torpedo. Dunstall kept falling short, and Peter Dacos was beyond his outer limits. Finally, with his 20th and last kick, Lockett broke the deadlock, and you couldn't help but feel a little sorry for the footy that had the laces kicked out of it. And then it was up to Billy Brownless. The super boot from Geelong needed a goal from this kick to force a playoff. And those last 5 kicks from 50 metres really proving costly. Tony Lockett and Jason Dunstall, the only 2 of our sharpshooters to kick goals. Tony Lockett finishes on top. He's $2,000 richer from Jason Dunstall and Billy Brownless, who finished a goal behind, with Peter Dacos finishing 4th on 5 goals. Plugger, almost impossible to get the distance on 50, yet you did it with your 20th and last kick.
We're lucky with that one, I think, Steve. Bit hard with the wind going against you, but just lucky to pull that one out, I think.
Tony Lockett winning the $2,000 in the shootout. Will he be the John Coleman medalist this year? Well, Sportsbook's betting the following odds: 6-4 Lockett. Got a feeling Dunstall might shorten up at 2-1. He's got a fly, hasn't he? 12 to start off with. Jakovic 5, Sumic 8s, Longmire, Brownless, Dacos, Kernahan, Osborne and Abler. But you'd reckon it's Dunstall versus Lockett, though Sumic was right up there last year leading. We take a break. We're going to preview some of the matches after this. And he joins us this morning. Welcome to the program, Roscoe.
Hey, good morning, Bruce. How are you?
You're fit and fiery as usual, I should imagine.
Feeling terrific. A beautiful day here too, Bruce. I think unlike what you've got there at the moment.
Yes, could be a bit... No, actually, no, Melbourne's looking all right. I think it'll be perfect, Ross. Anyway, that's the weather report for today. What about the match? Interesting that Micken, who's had some injury problems, the best and fairest last year's on the emergency list.
Yes, the other 2 players, Sanderson and Modra, Bruce, played yesterday. Modra kicked 10, so Micken's standing by, and he was a fantastic player last year, so... But doubtful if he will play.
You'd say Adelaide has got some advantage. They lost at the Western Oval in a low-scoring match last year, but they beat Footscray in Adelaide after a struggle, and they won that Foster's Cup match, which was played late in February.
Yes, I was at the game here last year, Bruce, and it was a fantastic contest, really, given that Adelaide were going to swamp the Bulldogs, and I think the Bulldogs came back, but it was Adelaide's forwards that had the strength, which I think will be the same situation again today. The Bulldogs' backline, even though Tui's been recruited to so-called replace Ricky Kennedy, wearing his old number, of course, number 8. But I don't think Footscray will have the firepower up forward, Bruce, to cover Adelaide at all.
I'm just wondering if you get the same reception that we Victorians get over there, Ross, by the crowd.
Yeah, funny about that. They said I was a non-parochial Victorian, so that went down very well. That was that old lady that said to say good day to you, Peter.
Thanks, Ross.
Ross, who do you think they'll line up against Atkins, the guy just hand-passed the ball in?
Well, I think McDermott's done very well, and in fact, a player like Chris Lewis from the Eagles, Ron, he tagged in some respects last year, and I think they should just leave McDermott in the centre, and those 2 players, now whether you tag Atkins or not, I think they probably should look after him. McDermott's the sort of player I think could do the job very well.
Ross, has there been any public reaction to Terry Wheeler's statements in the press this week that Footscray will win and win well?
Well, if you look at the front page of this morning's paper, it actually says that Wheeler's been intimidated by the Victorian press for his comments that they were going to win the night premiership, and now he's suffering a little because of that statement. And I think that you'll find that Terry Wheeler is going to have his boys fight up pretty well today to try and make amends for that statement that he made.
G'day, Ross, Bernie here. I'm just wondering, do you think it's wise that Terry Wheeler comes out with these statements and makes the big predictions?
Well, Ben, I think it's probably a little foolish to say those sorts of things. Obviously, you want your players to do very well and you'd like to have success in that competition, but to actually say that publicly is probably a little foolish, and he's set himself up a little bit. So if they can make amends today, which will be a difficult task, that's obviously what he'll want to do.
Ross, do you fancy Ballantyne as full forward? Looks to be a very good player.
Well, he kicked, I think he kicked 6 last week, didn't he, at Skinner Reserve in a losing team. And he's a fellow who's got good hands. He's a tall, strong fellow, holds his ground very well. And when they're looking for someone to cement a place at centre half and full forward, he's one of those players that's got to take that position, because they're probably lacking, certainly in that area, I think. So a good chance for him today to do that.
Now, the Adelaide administration is still going on with their plan of keeping 5,000 seats always available for home matches.
Yes, well, in fact, when you look at the situation here, Ron, they've got something like 37,000 seats sold, and I think that brings in revenue of something like $2.5 million. So they've done extremely well to get that here, and already at this time of the morning there's people here and it's very busy, so I think they've done the right thing, Ron.
Ross, thanks for that. We'll look forward to the telecast. And you're going for Adelaide to win?
I think so, Bruce, yes.
And is that unanimous, gentlemen?
Adelaide. Yeah, it'll be closer than people think, I reckon.
Okay, and very briefly, the other game, Essendon and St Kilda. St Kilda hot favourites. Anyone thinking Essendon can win today?
Yes, I think Essendon will win.
I was hoping you'd say that, Tim.
No, I just think that a lot of people are underrating Essendon. Essendon did finish in the 6th last year, and they've recruited quite well. They've got Bauer and Denham on the bench today, plus also Willie Dick, who should be worth a couple of goals in the forward line too.
St Kilda got a very poor record at Waverley. Yeah. Shocking record at Waverley.
And against Essendon as well.
I think it's about 10-1, isn't it? The record. St Kilda have only won 1 out of the last 11.
Okay.
Now, Timmy, is Sheedy going to pull the 8-man defence, 4-man forward line, whatever he did last time to thwart Lockett, and it worked?
Well, when I retired, it meant that I wasn't allowed to be on the match committee anymore, Ron, so I'm not sort of privy to what he has got in mind.
Who would you play on Lockett? Tim has signed the official secrets book right there.
Who would you play on Lockett today, Tim?
Look, I would start with Brad Fox on Lockett, but when you're playing against St Kilda, really what you have to do is stop the ball getting down there. You could play the best full-back in the world on Tony Lockett, and he won't stop him if the boys aren't putting pressure up.
Well, I've got to stop the conversation. Sorry, I've got to stop the conversation because we need the marks of the week, and Ron and Bob, after this real little pause, are going to come up with them.
The Mark of the Week and the Mark of the Year are proudly brought to you by Mitsubishi Motors.
Well, we're looking at the kick in here, and the Gower's going up and taking it. He knew exactly where he was going.
Pace and determination.
Here's another man who knows exactly how to use his body. He outstrengthed young McGrath there.
Well, there's a fella's not too sure what he's doing because he turns around and still takes the ball. Very nice mark by Brown there.
And here's a man who does the body work and at the last moment dives for the chest mark. In the end, a regulation chest mark, when you come to think about it. Now, we've had a few fights on this. Bob and I disagree, but I've been able to have the very strange. Been able to have the winning say on this occasion because we tossed that right at the beginning of the season.
Yes.
And I've gone for young Gowers. I think he knew exactly what he was doing. He was taken out of the run-in. He couldn't jump up normally, so he's gone around the side, just touched the ball. He knew, almost took it one-handed, and then did the double grab at the finish. And I think that was
He brought the ball down, and it was a terrific mark when he took it with his 2 hands when it got down.
The degree of difficulty was very high, Bob. Not many people could do that.
No, seeing he was about 3 feet bigger than the fellow he was going over.
But what about the top 6? The panel has made these predictions, and we fly through them. Bob Davis, well, as you'd expect, Hawthorn, West Coast, Geelong, St Kilda, Adelaide and Collingwood.
I didn't actually pick Collingwood, I picked the other 11 to finish.
Ron Barassi, Hawthorn, West Coast, Geelong, St Kilda, Collingwood, North Melbourne, so no Adelaide for Ron. Gerard Healy goes Hawthorn, West Coast, Geelong, St Kilda. They seem to be unanimous. Collingwood, North Melbourne. What about Tim Watson? Well, he's got Essendon in there. Geelong, Hawthorn, West Coast, St Kilda, Essendon and Collingwood. Bernie has gone for Hawthorn, West Coast, Collingwood, Geelong, St Kilda and Adelaide. And Peter McKenna has gone Hawthorn, well that's a surprise, West Coast, Geelong, Collingwood, North Melbourne, St Kilda. So that's who the panel think will be in the top 6 at the end of the season. Gentlemen, we've got to go. It's been a pleasure.